Welcome back, everybody, to episode 6 of The Exit Row. I'm your host, Adama Anderson, here with Paige Larson.
Hey, guys.
Justin Moore.
Hey.
Hey, guys. Welcome. Yeah, this is episode 6. And Justin, you're like, really?
Man, look at us.
We're doing things.
We finally got 6 episodes on our belt.
Man.
And
crazy.
This is our final episode here in my apartment. So the next episode will be in my new home, which is like 136 years old, but
it'll be new to you.
Yes, it's new to me, new adventures. It's going to be fun. So first off, I wanted to make some corrections from the last episode. Ryan Kaufman messaged us and said, hey, FedEx is located in Memphis, Tennessee, not Nashville.
Yeah, duh, Adama.
Come on.
Jeez.
I'm an idiot. I apologize. So I just want to make that clarification. He said, for clarification, Express is the air operating company. Ground is a separate operating company. However, there are plans to combine both of those companies into a single operating company. And then, Justin, you're correct that the company used to be Federal Express.
Thank you.
However, the company never officially operated as Federal Express.
Right. Well, that would be weird if it actually did that. We all know that.
So as the Express was added during rebranding when the company became known as FedEx. Good noticing on the arrow and the blank space between the E and the X. And then he just said, great episode overall. Love the polls and engagement. Keep it up.
Yep, appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
And then
absolutely.
And then, will you guys be at Dorkfest Spot LAX in September? Don't have any plans at the current moment to be there.
But have fun to those who are going.
Absolutely. Yep. LAX, we absolutely love it. And that closes out our segment on corrections. So, yesterday, Paige, Omar, and myself, we had an experience.
We did.
Wow.
My goodness.
That sounds intriguing.
Right. Paige, let's talk about it. So the Ford Tri-Motor plane was in town. It's been in town since Thursday, so a lot of people have actually seen it around Omaha because it's kind of this very old aircraft. We'll talk about it in a little bit. And we noticed that it's buzzed around your home. It's buzzed around your home, Justin. And it's been interesting. A lot of people are trying to figure out what this aircraft is. So, Paige, you have a few details
I do.
Let us know about it?
So, actually, on the ticket we got, we have a few facts about the Ford Tri-Motor. It's a first all-metal, multi-engine commercial airliner. Cost to purchase out of factory was $55,000. So now imagine what it would be today. Total number of tri-motors built, all models from 1926 to 1933, was 199. Led to construction of the first airline terminal for passengers and was the first regularly scheduled passenger airliner to operate. Led to the first hotel, the Dearborn Inn, designed and built for air travelers. Led to the creation of the first paved runway. After the Tri-Motor was replaced as a passenger airliner, it was used for quite some time to carry heavy freight to mining operations in jungles and mountains. And it was the first aircraft manufacturer to mandate crew training for its airline customers.
So there's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, there's specific information about the plane.
Oh, man, this is specific information?
Yes, about the aircraft that we flew, which has a plaque on the inside. Eastern Air Transport was the first owner of it, and then it went to Cubana Airlines and Air Force One for the Dominican Republic, returned to the USA for barnstorming, used for crop dusting and smoke jumping, used for barnstorming again, starred in the Jerry Lewis movie, The Family Jewels, got severely damaged in a windstorm, wreck purchased by the EAA and restored by the EAA to airworthy condition, passenger operations for the EAA, and then starred in a Johnny Depp movie called The Public Enemies.
So it's got a lot of history in it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So currently I believe that there's only 2 tri-motors that EAA are running.
Yes.
So last year we happened to see it in Lincoln.
Yes, and there was a different one.
Correct. I don't remember what it is, but
I
I know.
imagine there's too many of them flying right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's 94 years old.
According to Flight Radar, it was 94 years old.
It's a very old aircraft.
Yeah.
Like I was telling Paige, it's pretty cool. I don't think it's possible to fly on anything older. Like literally, not possible to fly on an older airplane.
No.
I don't
So
think
that's
so.
what's pretty cool about what you guys did.
Yeah, and to think about it, like airplanes are so cool in the fact that even 94 years later, you can still fly an aircraft that
Yeah.
aviation just started in the early 1900s. Some would argue maybe the late 1800s, but yeah, we were able to fly an aircraft that's so old.
Which is crazy.
People think it's cool when they fly on like a 30-year-old A320. You flew on a 94-year-old tri-motor.
Right.
Talk about the experience.
Yeah, Paige. So I got you, Omar, and myself signed up
Yep.
for
Got us checked
Saturday.
in Saturday when we got there. We were flight 19, I believe, and they were on 16 when we got there, so we had a little bit of a wait. They did pre-briefing when the group in front of us took off. And then we got on the seats, as they said, pre-reclined.
Pre-reclined.
Yep.
The thing's on a steep incline, man. Like,
It was. And we got up. It was about a 10-minute flight. Super loud. Very windy because they had like the circle in the window.
it's got a unique sound. Every time I heard it by my apartment, I knew it has such a unique sound.
Yep.
It does. Yeah, and we flew over Omaha. Again, 10-minute flight, so we did just a little bit of a...
Oh, kind of like a milk run flight. Nice.
Yeah. Yep, and so we saw a little bit of downtown off the right side. I mean, it was uneventful, but it was amazing. I mean, just getting to fly on an
Did you
aircraft
cry?
that old. There was a little bit of a tear, you know. But yeah, it was just so cool just to experience flying in an aircraft like that.
Yeah, and it's rare too. So this one was at Oshkosh, I believe.
Yep.
And I guess I was going to say, like, one of the cool things that I did see was there was an older gentleman and his wife that came out just to look at the aircraft.
Yep.
And I want to say he was in his 70s.
Yeah, I think so.
And his wife and him were taking pictures of the aircraft taking off. So the both of them just seeing this older couple and their love of aviation. And that older gentleman had just come back from Oshkosh, and that was his first time going out to Oshkosh.
Nice.
So
Super cool.
he gave us some tips. Like his friend booked him in the dorms at a college, and they also booked a bus every day to go in and out of Oshkosh. But that's pretty neat. I hope that's me later in life. I'm old.
He's probably looking at you guys being like, I'm glad the young generation's out here, honestly.
There's that too, and admiring something that's been around forever.
Literally.
Yeah.
And
So is this for your first guys' time at Millard Airport?
No.
actually,
Flying out of Millard Airport? Have you flown out of Millard Airport?
Not flown out of there, but
Right.
I did do a photography session there, like
A photography
modeling.
session?
Yes, at the airport. So.
Oh, you modeled at Millard Airport.
Yes.
Wow, that sounds
Oh.
exotic.
Paige
Wow.
has a job on the side, ladies and gentlemen.
A modeling session at Millard Airport. Wow. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, that was my first time at the Millard Airport. Either flying.
I've flown out of there once during a lesson, but other than that, I mean, I live really close to it, so I'm always seeing planes fly in and out of there. It's
Yeah.
an unmanned airport, so it's uncontrolled. For those of you that don't
Yeah.
know, not every airport has ATC. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, and we did witness somebody doing their first solo.
Yes. Yeah,
So that
I
was
got a
pretty
picture
neat.
of that.
It's pretty neat to see the instructor out there, and just happy to see his student do their first solo landing 3 times. You know, they landed 3 times, and yeah, it looked pretty good from our end too. So
Yep.
happy for them.
Millard airports are a good test. Like I said, being unmanned, like you really get the comms down. Not because I always felt intimidated going into there, because you have to talk around the other airplanes. You don't get help. It's all on you. It's
Yep.
kind of a unmanned, uncontrolled airports are very honor system based. You know,
Yeah.
you really got to trust everyone else that's in the airspace.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Millard Airport is just an alternate airport here in Omaha that is literally just for flight schools and for people who don't want to be at the Epley Airport.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was. Is there anything else about the experience? It was pretty cool.
It was so cool.
and it was pretty chill. And
it shows what aviation was like back in that day. Like, I mean, that steep incline, like that's the way planes were. Can you imagine that? Like on any flight, like that wasn't unique to that aircraft. That's just how they were.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and I chose to be in the back, the last seat, just so I could experience the okay, come on, because it's on the two front wheels. And that third wheel in the back is just
that
waiting
third wheel,
to come
man.
down.
That third teeny tiny little wheel on the back. Like if you do want to look up the aircraft, the registration on this guy is, let's see here, November 8407. If you want to check it out on Flight Radar, see what we're talking about. I think it's pretty cool looking.
It is.
Because it takes off super unique the way it sits on the ground. So obviously its takeoff is pretty unique and landing.
Oh, yeah. And one of the individuals that was out there said it takes about 8 seconds to get up, compared to I used to like when I was on the E4B, I would calculate about 38 seconds it would take for us to lift.
That's crazy.
So it's just one of those things, like you think about it, it doesn't need much speed. It gets up quickly, comes down quickly. And I figure like when it was on base and then turned final, I'm like, we're still super high. So it's kind of like has that Cessna 172. Like you could still be super high and get down.
And still be just fine.
And still be just fine. Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty neat for the experience. And yeah, that's it for this segment. We'll be back.
All right, guys, welcome back to the exit row. If you might notice, this is Justin speaking this time. Hey, what's up? How we doing?
Whoa.
So let's see. Our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit of air history, kind of stemming from our previous segment. We'll keep it in the history field. So we're going to talk about Braniff Flight 250. So this was a flight way back August 6, 1966. Real quick, think about that. That Ford Tri-Motor was already like 40 years old at this point.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, my God.
Anyway, so let's see. This was a flight, unfortunately, that had a rough ending, crashed. Unfortunately, everyone on board did not make it. So this was a flight that originally originated from, let's see, New Orleans and had several stops. I mean, this is very common back in that era. Like, nonstop flights were kind of not really a thing. It was a flight from New Orleans to Omaha, technically, with 5 stops in between. So this flight, as mentioned, on its final leg between Kansas City and Omaha is when some unfortunate events took place. And so the reason we're bringing this up is because, first off, it is the state of Nebraska's only, I shouldn't say only, but its deadliest air disaster.
Correct.
Yes.
Technically, Nebraska, right down there in Falls City. If you know your geography, you know where it's at. If not, look it up. But just right down there in the southeast corner of Nebraska. So again, it was on its final leg of the flight between Kansas City and Omaha. And it ran into weather, of course. Always seems to stem with weather at some point. But this was back in the day before radar. It was all this kind of, you're relying on communication from the ground and basically what the pilots were seeing. And it was kind of they kind of made some choices that maybe they shouldn't have made. But I think you have a few things maybe you'd like to mention on this flight.
Yeah. So, so like you said, it was August 6th. So that is in aligns with this week and history from us.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a Lockheed L-188 Electra. And some of the interesting things that we had read was the pilots did communicate with some other Braniff flights that did come from Omaha, said, hey, the weather's looking bad. You might want to be careful. Mm-hmm. You might actually want to go up. The pilots decided out of Kansas City to continue to be at only 5,000 feet, which didn't help. And so, yeah, there were 42 individuals on board. Currently, there's a memorial out there in Falls City, and it's just a soybean field now. Like that's the thing with like Nebraska. There's a lot of farms, just like Iowa, So it unfortunately crashed, but there were a lot of people who were there to witness the incident.
Yeah, there were several witnesses actually, and a lot of things coming from this crash.
Right.
Yes.
So one of the interesting things was that the lead investigator was the guy that created the Fujita, however you say it. Fujita scale.
Fujita.
So, hey now. But yeah, so he created the F scale, the Fujita scale, So
Which is
for those
how
who
they
don't
grade
know,
tornadoes.
it's about how tornadoes, you have F0 to F5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting that this was his first investigation, and he didn't create that scale until after this crash. So that was interesting. It also created, what was some of the other things?
So like a reason this crash was able to be figured out was this was the first United States registered aircraft that actually had a cockpit voice recorder. So this was obviously huge. Because obviously back in the day, like not everyone had the technology, couldn't afford it, but this was the first U.S. registered aircraft that actually had cockpit voice recording. So obviously that's going to help a lot when you can figure that out, and that's why they have those transmissions on the choices the pilots made versus the choices maybe they should have made. But either way, obviously that had a lot to do with it, and thus laws were put in place where, hey, maybe we need to have these things in every single aircraft.
Yeah, because
Along with no radar was in the aircraft either. So these were things, again, unfortunate events have to sometimes happen for things to move forward.
correct.
And this was one of those times.
Yeah, and like after the investigation was concluded, they figured out like, hey, we do need this the radar in the aircraft, but unfortunately another aircraft had crashed. But this aircraft specifically helped further enhance the aviation part of the United States, and which is pretty interesting. Unfortunately, again, people's lives had to be affected by this, but that's just how all aviation disasters occur. Like we wouldn't have never figured out like we need to have little pinpoint holes inside the windows had unfortunately people perished. So interesting little bit of nugget of Nebraska aviation history.
Yeah, interesting crash, but also happened in Nebraska, so altogether.
Yeah, and thankfully it was brought up by the local news, but it was only one organization here. I think it was...
Shout out to like KMTV for initiating the article, I guess, because like you said, it was the week that this has happened, so this is why it was in the news.
Right. And I had never known until that article came out. And
Me either.
I appreciate the local news actually covering it.
Yeah, check it out if you're more interested in it, because it's not only aviation but very weather interesting as well. So a lot of people out there that are aviation geeks also tend to be weather geeks.
Yep.
So
yeah,
a lot of connections there.
And at that point, you think they are probably about 100 miles, 60 miles away from Omaha. Why would they stay at 5,000 feet? And so, thankfully, we have advanced from there, and I think we do a really good job with the aviation here in America. So
I don't think it's really much of an argument, but flying is arguably safer than driving these days.
Yes.
Right.
And
but anyway, Braniff Flight 250. If you're interested in reading more about that, that's the flight number.
Yeah, we kind of like aviation crashes.
Yeah, as much as I don't like to,
Right.
It's a weird subject to bring up, but I love air disasters because I find them fascinating how they're figured out. I just think they're extremely interesting, like how a plane can get blasted to smithereens and they can piece it back together and tell you what happened.
Right.
I think that is fascinating.
And
and then all of the stuff that stems from it, like why we have the things we do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that concludes this segment. We'll be back.
All right. So, as we mentioned earlier in this podcast, some corrections. We're going to get ahead of ourselves here and do a correction on Braniff Flight 250. So yes, it unfortunately fatally ended en route to Omaha, but its final destination was Minneapolis. So don't get at us on Instagram and Twitter. We made the correction right here, right now. Anyway, so speaking of weather and diversions and very interesting things to happen in Nebraska, here in Omaha, Adama and myself and some other local spotters were brought out to Epley because an A350 with a Delta diverted into Omaha.
Yeah. And it was the first A350 ever to be at Epley.
To grace Epley with its presence, yes.
So yeah, it was interesting. Diverted from Seoul, Korea, and was supposed to head to Minneapolis, and ended up here. Which, yeah, I kind of find that interesting. That we don't know who all was in the aircraft, but I assume there were some Koreans who were in the aircraft or foreigners, and they are arriving in Omaha, Nebraska.
Probably didn't have that on their bingo card that day.
No.
Of all places to end up.
And, they come here, they can't get off the aircraft, which that part, it's terrible. But they didn't go to the Delta Gate. They went out to the North Apron, where usually they park charters, for CWS, College World Series when it's here. I find it interesting, though, that what if somebody on that aircraft, their final destination was Omaha?
That would be crazy.
Right.
And, yeah, they couldn't get off. They had to go up to Minneapolis to come back here. But, we didn't have customs
so again,
and
diverted due to
immigration.
weather. Storms, obviously, in Minneapolis caused this diversion.
Yep.
And yeah, since we don't have passport control here, which is the reason I don't think we get diversions like this in the first place. But anyway, that's why they couldn't get off the aircraft and go to places like Cracky McGee's.
Good old Cracky McGee's.
But, it is interesting because what's funny, like what we noticed is a Sun Country flight from Omaha to Minneapolis left on time.
Correct.
But yet we have a Delta A350 diverting in. I just find little things like that is what I find really interesting.
Yeah.
Sun Country's going for it, but Delta's taking the diversion in Omaha.
Well, and even that, the Delta that was taxiing when it landed was headed to Minneapolis.
Right. Some of these things just don't make sense to me.
So it was just interesting.
But what's funny is now that this has happened, because, I would say going into that day, we're watching, shout out to Airline Videos Lab. We've got them out in the background. Now that this has happened, this means it can happen again. So now that we've seen it, because before we would say, maybe it won't happen because it's never happened before. But now that this has happened, you can't rule out an A350 again, right?
No. And
in fact, they should just make those regularly scheduled flight A350
there we go.
and 787.
That too. Well, obviously that would be great.
Right.
That would be great.
Well, I saw the other day where there was 2 737s back to back from DFW. So why not?
Yeah, well, that was diverted, or not diverted, delayed. The one.
Delayed.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely one delayed. But anyway, just knowing that it's happened before, meaning it's possible again. Because up to this point, I assume they couldn't service the aircraft. That's why we don't see diversions like that. But
Yeah.
clearly that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
Because, you got to be trained on the aircraft and how to service it and fuel it in order for them to come here. So obviously that's possible. I actually just assumed it wasn't. That's why we don't see diversions like that.
Yeah, and it's like the big Q bringing the 777 in last year.
Yeah.
That was a rare too.
Yep.
Right.
Rare occasion.
But anyway, diversions are interesting. For all we know, who knows why exactly, but not complaining. Not complaining.
No, I'll never complain.
And Paige,
No,
why were you not there?
Because me and my dad were at a tractor pull.
Hashtag Nebraska.
Yes.
Hashtag. Okay, what is that?
Okay, so a tractor pull.
Sidebar.
Yeah. For those who don't know, is heavily modified tractors some of them trucks who try and get the longest distance. And they have a sled on the back with a weight that goes forward the longer they go. So it puts weight onto the ground. So they just try and get as far as they can with the weight being added to the back. So
now this is the exit row and aviation and truck pulling.
Yes.
Or tractor pulling.
Yes.
Podcast. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Our knowledge reaches far and wide.
There we go.
Absolutely.
If you didn't know, now you know. And a big shout out to Delta's Team USA is coming in LAX right now.
Oh, wish we could have seen that.
But thankfully for Airline Videos Live, we are seeing it right now.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
And shout out to Omar. Shout out to Nate. We haven't seen Nate in forever.
What up, guys?
And Plane Spotter DK, also known as Dylan. That's his real name.
AKA.
He's been here for the last few days. He's met a few of us. We met him yesterday.
Yep.
Omar, Paige, and myself. And he's been out there also at Offutt, taking pictures of the E6 and the E4B and all the aircraft down there. So he's enjoying his time here, and it's nice to see another plane spotter coming to town. And if you do come into town, please reach out to us. We will happily show you Eppley Airport. And that ends this segment. We'll be back.
Hey guys, welcome back to the exit row. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to my mom, who loves to go traveling with me. I know I've given a few shout outs to my dad, so wanted to give a little shout out to my mom. I know.
What's up, Paige's mom?
She was
Hey,
wanting
Mom.
a shout out too. So shout out to the Rents,
To the Rents.
Mom, Dad, what's up?
And so now we will be talking about the polls that we've had on our Instagram. And we will be starting off with the great debate. What do you prefer, the Boeing 747 or Airbus A380?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, the winner of this was, of course, the Boeing 747 with 73% and Airbus A380 at 27%. So 747 had 24 votes. A380 had 9 votes.
Interesting.
Not surprised, but at the same time, it's a very open-ended question. But
Yeah.
I'm with the 73%.
Me too.
Same.
I'm
Absolutely.
a huge...
Not against the A380, but when you got to pit them up against each other,
Right.
sorry,
Absolutely.
747 all day.
And it's history, right? Like,
Yeah.
the 747 came out in 1969, and it's still flying.
It looks majestic anytime, anywhere.
It's so unique.
Yeah, that hump.
There's nothing else quite like that. So,
There literally isn't.
no.
No. And then you see the A380, and it's just a double-decker. You're like...
I mean, again, both very awesome, but when you put them up against each other, 747 is majestic, queen of the skies,
Absolutely.
for a reason.
Now, it's interesting that when the 747 came out, it was able to do over 400 passengers, but then Airbus was like, okay, let's do the A380, and we have 800 passengers. That's a lot.
Right?
Exactly.
So many.
And to see that it is being so heavily used now, the A380, you almost debate, are they going to bring back the production of the A380? Justin, you talked about how it was interesting that they only have the A380 800.
Yeah, if you ever look at, if you find an A380 on flight radar, it's always the A380 800.
Right.
But there's no other variant of the A380 in, not production, but just out there. There's only just the 800. There were plans for a 900, which is why there is a specific variant of it. But yeah, it is always interesting to see, you're never going to find an A380 other than the 800. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
But like we were mentioning, imagine a 900. If the 900 had come to
Exactly.
fruition,
Oh
had it
my
actually
God.
been able to be
That would be
made.
massive.
it's kind of like in our last podcast, it'd be interesting to see if Southwest or any of those companies were to try to
Spirit would opt for the 900.
right. Yeah, so it's interesting. And the 747 is so versatile. Now
Yes.
it's heavily being used as a freighter aircraft, and it's just a beautiful aircraft that's just so versatile. And obviously for me, I've got the E4B underneath my belt, so I love it.
Just a little something underneath your belt.
But you were talking about Justin, your father did
Randall.
take a 747 before, and
Yeah, he's flown it
interesting.
into Hawaii because it's funny because now, when you're flying to Hawaii from anywhere on the West Coast or really anywhere, it's like an A321 or 737.
Yeah.
But back in the day, you had
830.
United and American and Hawaiian flying heavies domestically, which was awesome. He flew a 747 from, it was actually LAX to Hawaii on a 747. Yeah, and sat, as we were just discussing, and we'd like to bring this up because it's a very interesting point. When you're in one of the first two rows, you're literally sitting in front of the pilot.
Right.
It's
Yep.
pretty, and that's got to be a pretty wild feeling.
Yeah.
Right.
It's neat.
Yeah, it really is. Very unique aircraft, absolutely. Like I said, looks good anytime, anywhere.
Absolutely.
And so we had some responses from our viewers. So Heathwave _ aviation 95, also known as Evan. He says the 747, because it has lived a much longer life than the A380. More history behind it. We also have Jet Set Shirts. Chose the Queen of the Skies is an all-time classic. The A380 is ugly as bleep.
Oof, harsh.
He literally said
Dang.
bleep, so
Harsh words.
Bleep. Sometimes the bleep's even worse than the actual word, right?
it's a bleepity bleep. Tanner spots planes. He's here also in Omaha, the Omaha area. He says the 747 is the first plane I tracked on Flight Radar 24, and when I saw what it looked like, I was obsessed.
Wow, the first plane he tracked on flight radar.
Right.
I have no idea what the first plane I tracked on
Me
flight
either,
radar.
actually.
I don't even know the first plane I tracked on flight radar today.
Right? I'm like,
Man, shout out Tanner. Nice stat right there.
Yeah.
there you go, Tanner. And, he lives near Offutt Air Force Base, and so he sees the E4B all the time, which is pretty neat. And then one other response we got was from air_attack_Zach. He says, the 747 Global Firefighting Super Tanker.
Oof, nice call out right there.
Right?
Right.
All those tankers.
So yeah, the 747 is just super versatile. We all love it over here. And yeah.
Yeah.
So we had that poll earlier. Paige, we had another poll earlier.
We sure did. Should United Airlines bring this livery back as a special, referring to the tulip livery?
Yes.
Some interesting stats about this one.
It's not the original tulip livery. Let's make sure we know which one we're talking about.
Yes.
It was the blue variant of the tulip.
The blue variant, yep. Because Omaha Airport had posted it earlier this week, and we're like, yeah, we absolutely love the tulip.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not the original tulip, but yes, a good one.
Yep.
And it was a whopping 96% for yes and 4% for no.
Wow.
23 votes for yes and 1 vote for no. Let's talk about who that one vote was,
Let's talk
Justin.
about this one vote,
He
Justin.
just wants to be mentioned, I swear. That's why he said no. But anyway.
Oh, Randall? Your
talking about
dad.
Randall?
The joint Moore account,
Yeah.
which is basically Randall's account. But yes, apparently they voted no. I'll have to discuss that with him later today. Yeah, I can't speak for him. I know personally his favorite is the Friendship era, which is obviously great. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be speaking about that for sure. But I've got the theory that he just wanted to be mentioned. That's why he voted no.
Oh,
And on the
okay.
next podcast,
Randall, we got you.
just like how he voted yes for the A319 being cute.
Unfortunately, he wasn't alone in that, though. So
Yeah, but I think he knows it. You disagree, so
I do.
yeah. Sad.
Still, the A319. Isn't the Friendship, wasn't it on the A319 and not
It
supposed
is
to
on
move to the
the
A321?
Yeah. I think it's...
Oh,
well,
wait, did-
American's the one that's changing. I'm not United.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
American. I was going to say they repainted that.
Yeah, everybody's repainting it. Even Southwest with the state liveries.
Yep.
They're moving them all. Which will be interesting to see, like California one. Are they going to make the bear larger? I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or just keep it the same size and it just looks small.
Yeah.
Small.
Small plane, small
Smooth.
livery.
It's Small Plane Sunday.
Okay. So that's it for our polls that we had.
Yep.
I find it interesting. Something that came around the social medias was from Oshkosh. The Super Guppy was there. And I just kind of want to discuss it for a little bit about how it's just a Frankenstein of parts put together.
Yes.
So, Super Guppy, very interesting that the engines are either they use the 4 Allison T56A14 turboprop engines, which are the same as a C-130, the military aircraft. They also use for Hamilton standard 54H60-123 hydromatic propellers, also in the C-130s. The nose gear is used from a 707, and then parts of it are from the B-52, and the fuselage is from a KC-997 Super Freighter. So a lot of things put together.
It is fascinating. I actually was unaware of this until you had brought it. I believe you had brought up the article to our attention. I was unaware of how, it really is just a culmination of a bunch of other airplanes.
Yes,
It's really
it
kind
is.
of interesting.
Yeah, and it's just, it really is. Like, to put all these parts, I mean, it makes sense when you have these companies that are creating things, and you're like, well, we have a perfectly good 707 landing gear. Why don't we just go ahead and put it on here? It should work. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think what I read is it stays in Texas normally when it's not out flying.
Yeah.
The pilots have to do 200 hours of flying to maintain currency each year. And, it's usually VFR. They barely fly IFR.
That's crazy.
So, Super Guppy. Interesting.
The
Hopefully,
Gupster.
I would love to see it. I think it's just a neat monster.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I've personally not seen it in person. I actually don't think I don't believe I have.
Me either.
Didn't our friend Shayla see? She saw something.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Texas, I think. Somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. The other thing about it being a cargo hauler, it's 143 feet long. I don't know what that is in meters. And has
long.
Yeah.
It's a long boy.
And a wingspan of 156 feet. So height, tip of the tail is 48 feet. So interesting. The Super Guppy just was an interesting thing that we had pop up this week.
Yeah, if you're not aware, if you don't know what it looks like, highly recommend looking at it. It's one of the more unique aircraft out there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Next, what do you guys think of this new Air India livery?
I like it.
Shocking.
I mean,
Why?
I know it's not original or creative because it kind of follows the same, suit as all these other airlines. But I love the colors.
Colors are great. The colors are good.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it? Just the colors?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cute. I don't need a reason.
so
It's
cute.
cute.
It's cute.
Cute plain
livery
face.
Who needs a reason when it's cute, right?
Justin,
What's up?
what do you think?
I like the colors, but as Paige alluded to, the previous, or not previous, but the current Air India livery is one of the more unique ones out there, I think. It's got a good color, and then the windows are, I'm going to say both words. It's either like a temple or a tent that surrounds each window on the outside. It's very unique. It's kind of unnoticed until you see it, and then you look a little closer. Like, I think you were even unaware of it until I even mentioned it.
I didn't know.
It's subtle until you see it once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, as Paige was alluding to, I just feel like all the new liveries nowadays are very non-creative, just no effort's put into it. No one stands out a whole lot besides the colors.
Like the Japan Airlines landing right now on.
And just no one seems to stand out. All the schemes are all the same. Just name on the fuselage, a white body with a different tail.
Yeah, and
just no creativity anymore.
Like this one, somebody even put it on Twitter. I don't know who it was, but they compared the font to Iberia, and kind of the colors are the same.
Yeah,
which
I think there's a lot out there that you could find where like you can really, if you just did the letters and not necessarily the airline itself, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them.
Yeah, like not Avelo. I think they have a different font, but yeah.
Not that everything's the same, but everything is just generally trending in the same direction.
Yeah.
No one's standing out anymore. In general, there are those, of course. Eat has got a new one, but in general, it just seems like if a new livery comes out, it's very basic nowadays.
Yeah, and if you kind of think about it, it's all either all uppercase or all lowercase, and it's just not like Sun Country right here. We're like looking at it here on flight
on airline videos.
Airline video, sorry.
Yep.
And it literally Sun Country is all lowercase, right?
Yeah.
So, but then again, I do like Sun Country. I like the Sunkissed. That's what I call it, the Sunkissed logo.
The Tide Pod livery. That's what I call that one.
Tide Pod livery. There's that too. Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. Air India new livery. We got to get used to that. That'll take a few years for it to go through. But they also ordered like 400 aircraft.
Holy crap!
It's gonna be, I think, the largest.
Someone's got some money.
Yep.
Right.
That's from Tata, right? I think that's the company that owns them. The ones that make some of the.
Sure.
They make airplanes or not cars as well, and some. What do you call it? The
Batmobiles. What?
No.
Batmobile.
When you get a crash, the bag that comes out.
Airbags.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
Guys, we're also learning here.
We're into planes, not cars. Sorry.
Right. So there's that. Interesting. I read earlier this week that Spirit is converting all their A319 Neos to A321 Neos.
Yep.
You would think that'd be a good sign, right? Looking for more capacity is what I take that.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And good for them.
Or they just realize that the A319 is awful, and they're like, you know what?
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
This is what I was trying to get at.
They're like, wait, what are we doing? No.
Discuss the A319.
Should actually just bring in more A319 Neos.
Right.
Sounds like that's not the case, though. They've taken
They're still going to have some A319, though. So.
They finally got to their senses, and they're like, whoa. A321's my bad.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
A321 Neo is a lot better than the A319 Neo. My opinion. Shocking, right?
Yeah, not shocked at all.
I'm going to have to agree. I think it's better.
Yeah, the A321neo is a much sleeker looking aircraft. But
I mean, as far as the logistics of it, yeah. I mean, if they need the capacity.
Yeah, they just need more arguments. They need more people to just have problems.
only
clearly there's
why.
some people out there looking to argue because they went over the A320, went straight to the 21.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to the Exit Row. This is one of your co-hosts, Justin, speaking. Let's see. So, Adama, we got some upcoming travels we'd like to talk about that you would like to talk about specifically, and maybe a tip that you have for the people out there listening.
Yeah. So, my turn to talk a little bit, just a little bit.
You're doing great.
Thanks. I appreciate it. So, tomorrow I'm leaving to go to Italy, headed back to Milan.
Whoa.
Go see my wife again. And
Shout out to the wife.
I'm going to go to... I'm going to fly from Omaha to Detroit first. It's going to be an early flight on a CRJ 900. And
nice.
Then from there, I'm going to be flying the A350, not the one that diverted in. That was in 505D. And
that would be pretty crazy if you did end up on that
that's
aircraft,
what I was
though.
thinking about, too.
Speaking of, it did have a wardrobe malfunction.
I saw that.
Yep. Just had to throw the Paige wardrobe malfunction in there.
Of course.
And then, so I'm flying from Detroit to Amsterdam. Again, love that airport. And I'm hoping that the 3 hours that I have on the ground, I'm going to try to get a shower in the lounge. First time ever, so...
Can't wait to hear about your shower experience.
About the shower experience.
Right.
And then after that, I'm going to be taking KLM from Amsterdam down to Milan Linate. So
will that be a 737?
Yeah, it should be a 737.
Okay.
Yeah, 737-700. And then 2 days later, next Thursday, I'm going to be taking Ryanair from Milan to Catania. So we're going to be spending a few days in Catania, coming back on Wizz Air. And Wizz Air, they do the A321neo.
Nice.
From Catania back up to Milan. Now, so I'm going to be flying in KLM into Linate, but for Ryanair and Wizz Air, I'm going to be the main airport, Malpensa.
Okay.
So 2 different Milan airports I'll be flying
Have
through.
you flown Wizz Air before? I can't remember. Have you? Is this new
I
for you?
have.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'll be coming back Air France.
Oh.
Milan to Paris, or as they say in Italian, Paris.
Oh, do you know the aircraft for that?
Paris. It's going to be an A319.
I was hoping for the 18.
I was hoping to as well.
Man.
The A318. I've seen one or two of them at Schiphol.
Yeah, it's a very exciting. Air France is one of your few that you're going to find that on.
Yep.
Oh, I would love to be on that. And then coming back Paris to Minneapolis on a A330 Neo.
Nice.
900 Neo.
Nice.
And I'm going to take Delta One
So
on the way
jealous.
back.
You got it going on that flight, man.
This is going to be my first one, so doing Delta One, so we'll see how that works.
You got a busy couple of weeks coming up.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm sure throughout the logistics, follow you on social media, right?
There you go. And then finish it up, Minneapolis to Omaha, a very common flight. I usually take 320 back, an A320.
Maybe you'll get diverted to Seoul, Korea. Oh, wait, no, that happened from Seoul. Sorry.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I've done a diversion before. I did take a Delta flight from Amsterdam to Detroit or Minneapolis, and I remember we had a medical emergency. You don't get that on cargo aircraft, only
Right.
passenger aircraft.
Unless it's the pilot, yeah.
Yeah.
There's that. Please no.
It happens.
Anyways, we were all the way over in Iceland and had to go back to Dublin. So we were like, well, that sucks. Eventually made it home. But it's interesting when I look at Flighty and see how I diverted back there, and then I took another flight to get back to where I needed to go. So that's the only diversion I had. And so I'll be flying the next couple days or the next couple weeks. That's a lot of flights. 6, 7. There's 8 flights in the next 2 weeks. And I'll get back brand new home, which again we talked about earlier. So the next podcast should be out of there. And other than that, I wanted to close it out with just a little tip that when you are flying to a city that has multiple airports, New York, which they're in Jersey, not really New York. And then DC, make sure you're going to the correct airport. I've had that experience where...
And you're saying this because...
Yeah. So I've had the experience where I thought I was going to Reagan, and I end up at LaGuardia.
You mean you're going to Reagan, Washington, you end up in New York?
Sorry.
Let's make sure we get this right.
Yeah. JFK.
That would be even weirder.
Right.
Weirder.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's set the story straight. You were headed for LaGuardia, ended up in JFK.
Vice versa. I thought I was going to JFK.
Gotcha.
Ended up in LaGuardia. And it's funny because my coworker, we had discussed it earlier, like, LaGuardia is the worst airport in the world.
It gets a bad rap. It's getting better, but anyway.
Yeah.
Slowly. But yeah, so, you show up to the Delta counter and it says New York. So.
What was your actual ticketed destination, just to be clear here?
To LaGuardia.
To LGA. Okay.
Yeah, I just
want to make sure the people know what's going on here.
Right. So I find, I was like, oh, I'm in LaGuardia. Oh, God, help me. So, further the discussion, like I, go to the lounge, come back, and I show up to my gate. My gate this next time says Washington, D.C., right? So myself thinking that, I booked the right aircraft or booked the right destination, get on my aircraft to go to Washington, D.C. Now, I booked a car reservation for a Tesla over in Reagan. However, getting on the aircraft, we're taxiing, and I'm looking at the aircraft that are in front of me because I'm just curious on Flight Radar 24. And I click a Delta that's in front of me that says Reagan. And I'm very confused because I think I'm going to Reagan.
You think you're going to Dulles, you mean?
No, I thought I was going to Reagan.
But you're in Dulles, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and then I click on my aircraft and it says Dulles, and I go, So yeah,
coming from an av geek too, this is kind of embarrassing,
right? And that's what
I gotta say. I mean, I wouldn't expect this from you at all.
I don't know what happened, and even my friends
to the
that
best
I was
of
going to
us.
go see, they're like,
it doesn't.
They're like, Adama, you are an av geek. There's Alaska taken off. Yeah, they're like, you're an av geek, Adama, and how did you mess this up? And by the way, they live right next to the Baltimore airport, so I could have just went to the Baltimore airport and saved my whole everything. But
hey, you live and you learn, right?
You live and you learn.
Yep.
I love this.
Oh,
Polar
yes.
DHL 747 taking off. So yeah, that's my tip of the day is when you go to an airport with multiple airports, make sure you book the right one. Kind of like Allegiant. They say they're going to Phoenix, but they're not actually going to Sky Harbor. They're going to the Mesa Airport.
Mesa Gateway, yeah.
Yep.
So just do your due diligence and make sure you go to the right
Yes.
airport.
Yeah. Wow. Good job, man.
Right. Idiot. All right. Well, on that note, let's close it up. Paige, what's your social media handles?
Social media is OMA_spotter_page, and my travel buddy is Adventures with Aileron.
Justin.
At spotting.omaha.
And I am photography by Adama D on the Instagram. Please go ahead and follow us on our social media, the Exit Row Pod on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. And please go like, subscribe, comment, share on your favorite podcast platform. We're on pretty much all of them now. For Justin, Paige, and myself, this is the Exit Row, and we'll see you for episode 7 later. Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.